Hello, my name is Mary Jo Fostian. I'll be presenting today a new webinar called Strengthening the Parent-Child Relationships. We'll be talking about parents caring for children of all different ages, as well as children caring for elderly or infirm parents. These will be general topics that I may not have covered in other seminars that I've done. And let me take you through those just for a second. So other webinars I've done, parenting during COVID-19, talked about love and logic parenting, which is from a book called Parenting with Love and Logic, as well as there's another series called Parenting Teens with Love and Logic. They're just wonderful, and they're the books that we recommend the most in parenting classes these days, as well as talked about love languages and emotion management. Another one I did was helping children learn in the home environment. And in that one, talk a lot about making the home environment very, very conducive for children to learn so that it can be easier for them. And then working with Teens for Success, and I dealt with the temperaments that teens have, which of course we know that teens can be very temperamental. And so talking about emotion management in that one as well. And then family dynamics and dysfunction, talking about all kinds of different dynamics, dysfunctions that happen in so many different families, and some ways to work around them. I did another one on anger management, calming the anger within, which is also the name of a workbook that I did. And I did another webinar on emotions in the brain. So I'm hoping that maybe some of these can be helpful for you if you're looking for very specific things with parenting. This one, however, is going to be more general. The topics we're going to be talking about here: caring for children and how to build your relationship with them. We're going to be talking about not only young children, but teens and tweens and adult children. And I will give you my top 3 concerns that I see from parents, as well as my top 3 suggestions that I give parents. I'm going to be talking about, in the last section of the webinar here today, about caring for your elderly or infirm parents and how to build that relationship. And we're seeing more elderly these days, so it's important to consider that. And so I gave you some resources here called aginginplace.org, as well as I have some information from Mayo Clinic that I thought you might like. Let's get started. So this is depicting what every parent hopes for their child. On the left, the ideal for the child's dependence on you. Of course, as they are very young, as an infant and as a young toddler, they're extremely dependent on you. And it takes a lot more time and energy to do that. But as they grow and age into adulthood, you hope that their dependence on you is less and less. And then you hope that your independence grows as their dependence lessens. And so this is what we all hope for, right? However, in reality, especially today, the dependence that children still have as they grow older seems to be growing. And the parent's independence seems to be up and down. It depends on your situation, of course. It depends on the child. It depends on you. It depends on so many factors. But this is what we're seeing more of reality now. No matter what age your child is, whether they are very young, whether they're a teenager or an adult, I think we'd all agree that all children need love. I don't think there's any problem with that. And love can be shown in many different ways, right? What I found is that time together is so very important for our children. So when they're very young, we teach them to help us in the kitchen. We teach them to help us with chores, and we work together with them in outside chores. And we want them to be responsible, of course, when they grow up. That's why we're doing that, okay? Not only because we need the help, but when we're older, we need help from them more, just in daily care sometimes. And so our dependence sometimes grows on them. But all the time, we would love to have fun with our children. That's an important piece, spending that time together and having fun. However, this quote from Mother Teresa says so much. I'm going to just read it through with you. Everybody today seems to be in such a terrible rush, anxious for greater developments and greater riches and so on. So the children have very little time for their parents. Parents have very little time for each other. And in the home begins the disruption of the peace of the world. So just think about this with me for a minute. Children today have so much time that they spend with their phones, their screen time, their social media, their friends, school, and is there time left for parents? Parents also have so much time that they spend with work and doing work and trying to make ends meet. So sometimes they have very little time for each other. And so what we're seeing is more and more divisions in the family. We're seeing more and more divorces. We're seeing more separation. We're seeing more children that are having trouble going from house to house. And we're not only seeing trouble with divorces, but we're seeing problems with divisions in ideologies from the pandemic, from political stuff, all kinds of divides that are dividing the family. And so as people get separated in the family and in the home, it just is so easy to not feel loved. You feel more alone. And when people don't feel loved, there's consequences to that. They often feel more resentful. They often feel more anger. They often have more trouble in other relationships outside of the home. And so, yes, in the home can become the disruption of peace. We can be a force for peace in our home. How can we manage our time? Time is so precious. But, we only have 24 hours each day. We all would like to have more, but we can't manufacture more. So I'd just like to put out in front of you, what are you spending your time on? And certainly we all need to be checking in with our phones and our emails and doing housework and taking care of ourselves and having friendships. But is time with the family on the bottom of your list of priorities? Where is that priority for time with family? Stephen Covey was famous for having his 4-quadrant list of important and urgent, important, not urgent activities, and or non-important activities that are urgent, and also non-important activities that are not urgent. Confusing if you think about it, but sit and think about it for a minute. Where do you spend most of your time and energy? Where are your time wasters? And I look at just, making phone calls that need to be, I need to get a hold of, say, the garbage collector. I need to get a hold of Centerpoint Energy. I need to get a hold of, an investor. And it takes time on the phone, and they put you on hold, and you're spending time and time and time. Those are time wasters you may not be able to help. And then you're going to doctor's appointments, you're doing this and that and the other thing. What is it that you can do to manage your time better? Is there anything you can do? Just put that on in front of you to be thinking about. And good relationships, as we found, you need to take time to listen to each other. And we expect our children to listen to us, right? So it's important that we listen to them. If we don't listen to them, we might be missing out on a whole lot of who they are and trying to figure out how to interact with them better. Sometimes they're not willing to talk to us. Sometimes they're not willing to listen to us. Okay, but when they are willing to talk to us, are we willing to listen to them? It's an important piece. We listen to podcasts, we listen to music, we listen to the boss, hopefully. Do we take time for our children to really listen? And then good relationships also take time to understand each other. You know, we can talk at each other very easily, but are we really understanding? So I look at this mother and I say, you know, what is she probably saying to this teenager? I can imagine she's probably saying, how are you going to graduate if you're not doing your homework? How are you going to get by in work if you're not responsible? How are you going to get by in the world if you don't accept what you need to do? You're not going to be able to get along. Kind of a stern attitude. The child probably is saying, you know, you're not really taking time to listen to me, Mom. You don't really get it. I wish you wouldn't judge me. Instead, what if the mom said, tell me what's going on. Why are you having trouble in school? So she's opening up. That's an open statement. Please tell me what's going on. I'd like to understand. And if the child says, okay, I'll talk to you, but I don't want to be judged. So then there becomes more openness as they talk. Time to understand, time to listen, attentively understand without judging. That's hard. I totally understand that's hard, but it's so important. And so I've listed here some of the top 3 concerns that I hear from parents as I do therapy with parents and children. And this slide shows their concerns for their young children as well as their teens and tweens. Tweens here meaning ages 9 to 13. So their top 3 concerns for young children seem to be that they're angry all the time, they don't obey, and I need to remind them a lot, and they keep spending time on the screen. They're, all the time on their phone. Can't get them off the phone. They're not even getting enough sleep because they're on their phone. For teens and tweens, I'm seeing more and more of them that are depressed, having low motivation, and a lot that are even suicidal. Some that even have attempted suicide. And they're angry as well. Sometimes it's not shown outwardly, sometimes it's inward, and it's shown in different ways, maybe by isolating in the room. And a lot of them have anxiety about their future. So my top 3 suggestions for you as parents of these children. Number 1 is anger and frustration management for yourself, first of all. Okay, how can you teach it to your children if you are not managing your own anger and frustration? Because parenting is very frustrating. I think we'll all agree with that. Okay, so first of all, to be able to catch yourself escalating, calm yourself down, telling yourself to relax and breathe and let it go. It's not that big a deal. I can work this through. I would suggest that you take on less control as they get older. Giving them choices and consequences, giving them a choice, 2 choices say that you'd be willing to consider, and then consequences if they don't do what you want them to do. You need to set boundaries and limits for them. I run up against so many parents who are afraid to set those boundaries and limits, but it's so important. And to be able to have them feel consequences for their poor choices. We're getting into prom time. We're getting into, if you've got a teenager who is spending nights out and you don't know where they are, you don't know who their friends are or their friends' parents are, that's a danger sign, okay? To be able to set limits and say, I need to know where you're going. You're still a minor. I still care. Please let me know where you are, okay? And so it becomes difficult as they age, but it's so important to be able to do that because they're going to have choices and consequences in jobs. They're going to have choices and consequences in marriage and partnerships. And they need to feel those consequences early on in life. But you need to be able to talk with them respectfully, to be able to do it calmly, not making demands, but making requests. Please help me out. I would really appreciate your help. Using I statements. I appreciate it so much when you can help me in the kitchen. I appreciate it so much when you are willing to talk with me. I just ask that you remain calm, and I'm going to try to remain calm. I'm concerned when I don't know where you are because I love you and I want to make sure that you're safe. However you do it with love, do it with kindness. If you have adult children, this slide is for you. My top 3 concerns that I hear from parents are, first of all, relationship problems with their adult children. They've lost that relationship somehow and they don't know how to get it back. And all they're doing is arguing. Or there's so much distance and emotional distance that they are having a hard time relating at all. Parents are worried about their children's anxiety and depression as they age because we're in a very difficult age to live in. They're also worried about their lack of responsibility. And so my top 3 suggestions for you as parents. Number 1, knowing and reminding yourself that you cannot live their lives for them. We would like to make them clones of us. We would like to help them in any way we can, but we can't live their lives. We can't make their decisions for them. Decisions that they make, right or wrong, are theirs, and they need to feel those consequences. Listen to them. Don't tell them what to do. They are adults. They need to figure that out for themselves. But you can encourage them. You can encourage them as a person as well as what you want to see for them. You can tell them you want them to be happy. You want them to be stable and resilient in life. You want them to be responsible and independent, but you also want them to be able to manage their own emotions. And so you can say that to them. You can say what you're concerned about, what you'd like to see. Those are what you can do. And please remember that family therapy is available. If you're, at all concerned about what's happening in your family, to be able to call a licensed marriage and family therapist, to be able to have us, kind of moderate and mediate those high tensions that can escalate between families and help there to be smiles. You can see this family is starting to smile again. It's wonderful when we can help families to be able to work together better. It just makes us feel so much better too. It's very fulfilling. And now I want to switch to caring for your parents if they are elderly or infirm. And this is a whole different topic that I haven't covered before, that I think more and more we're dealing with as adults because our parents are aging and people are living longer. People are living into their hundreds now. We never thought we would see that. But as people age, they have more and more problems. So you as a child, what do you need to consider? First of all, do you live close to them? If you live close to them, maybe you can help them more. Maybe that will be part of that responsibility that you take on. However, are you close emotionally to them? If you're not close emotionally to them, you may not want to take that on. And so are there other siblings? Are there other family members? Are there other neighbors that you can count on, that you can ask to help? Can they live independently? That's such a big deal for elderly as they age. And as I age, I look at, the fact that I have a home now. I have more and more chronic pain. It's harder to get up and down my stairs. It's the last thing I want is to lose my independence. The last thing I want is to be able to not get up my stairs and not take care of myself or not take care of my husband. But these are important questions that we need to look at. Do your parents need help with any of the things that I listed here? Maybe they just need help getting to doctor's appointments because driving is getting hard for them. Maybe they just need help with finances because remembering to pay their bills on time is difficult and they haven't figured out how to do the internet system, and they, don't do computers and phone stuff very much, or they're forgetting their passwords, whatever that is. What do they need help with? Maybe you can help them even with their lawn and garden if they need help with that. And one of the hardest questions is, do they need assisted living? Do they need memory care? Do they need to be in a nursing home? These are all really hard questions, but it's so important to consider, to not lose sight of the fact that parents, as they age, need someone to care for them. No one wants to be alone in the world. People need to care for each other. And so that might require some time from us as adult children. But, sometimes as people age, they become resistant. As I was talking about, the last thing I want to do is lose my independence. And so if my children come to me and say, Mom, I think it's time to, think about moving to an apartment, a condo, maybe, an assisted living. And, it's going to be a little bit of a resistance for me, I have to admit. But according to the Mayo Clinic, there's some things that we can try to understand. What are they dealing with? What are people that are aging dealing with? Why are they resistant? Well, a lot of older people may be looking at loss, whether that's a physical loss in their abilities or their mental memories. What is it? I know as my father aged and he had strokes and he lost the ability to, he lost a lot of the left side of his body after strokes. And so he couldn't get upstairs. He had to have somebody care for him all the time. I wanted to be able to help him. I wanted to be able to bring him to my house to live, but I couldn't. And I couldn't because, we have stairs in our house and I'm having trouble myself. So I needed to be able to understand what he was going through. He was scared. He sometimes was angry. He felt weak, and nobody likes to feel weak, okay? Nobody likes to be dependent on somebody else. Sometimes we can turn stubborn as we age. Sometimes you may be lucky if, or blessed that, if your parents aren't resistant, that's wonderful. But maybe there's something that you can work with them on to understand. Maybe they don't understand what's going on with themselves because maybe as they age, their not only their memory, but their capability to understand things is getting low as well. So who's going to talk with them? Sometimes the doctor can talk with them and assess their needs. So we've had several situations like that come up with our family where an elderly person shouldn't really be driving anymore, we think, because we're seeing some problems as they're driving. So a doctor can assess whether they are capable to drive, whether their sight is well, whether their memory and their decision-making capabilities are okay. If the doctor does it, that's wonderful, but maybe it's you, or maybe it's someone in the family who's going to be talking with them. Try to choose a relaxed time when everybody is just able to just sit down and talk, okay, rather than making it a, we got to talk to you about something. So ask what they want, okay? Do you want to still drive? Okay, if you still want to drive, where do you feel comfortable in driving? Do you feel comfortable in driving a couple blocks? How about if we come with you? If we come with you, and just sit in the passenger side and maybe, help look out the side windows and make sure that you're seeing all the cars, that kind of thing. If they're not willing to listen to one of us, we might need to enlist others' help. Don't give up, but be kind with them because they need someone to try to understand and be kind with the things that they're going through. And some more things that you might need to consider with resistance. Ask if they'll give it a try, such as several people in our family have needed hearing aids. And, there's kind of a stigma still about wearing hearing aids, whether a man or a woman. And so you might need to say, how about just talking it through with us? How about going for an assessment? What would you be willing to do? Let's just see what the doctor says, see what the audiologist says. Explaining in a positive way. Like, if you're willing to get hearing aids, it would really help us because we're straining our voices trying to almost yell at you to get you to hear us. And that's hard for us. We don't want to keep yelling. And it's hard because we just want to, have easy discussions with you. And we're hearing the TV volume way up, and it's disturbing the rest of the family. Would you please be willing to consider it? Okay. And so in talking respectfully to them, to be positive with them, to share your own needs, as I just talked about, but setting boundaries. Saying, okay, well, if you're not willing to get hearing aids, I'm not willing to just sit and listen to the TV as it's blaring. Let's get you some ways to get you your earplugs, earphones. Ask for them to work with you. Ask for them to compromise. One of the big concerns with older people is about expenses. It's going to cost too much. I don't want to spend that much. Some people are very, very sensitive to that. Some people don't have enough money to spend a lot. It costs thousands of dollars for hearing aids. Pick your battles with them. Avoid fighting. Try to avoid power struggles as much as you can. And trying to use understanding and patience with them. It's so important to be patient with people who are elderly, because if you have ever had a situation where your thinking is kind of cloudy, that's how people start feeling as they age. It's not as clear. They don't clearly understand anymore, but they know what they want. And so resistance can be dealt with patience, understanding, and respectful assertiveness. I want you too to be able to assess your own capabilities as well as your responsibilities. You might feel responsible, as I did, to help my father, to help your father, as I did with my father, to not go in a nursing home. But you also need to assess whether you can do it. Can he get up the stairs? Can I help him up the stairs? What are the capabilities that you need to consider? Are you working all the time? So you wouldn't be home all the time to take care of that person, to take care of that loved one. And you don't have the financial resources to be able to bring a nurse in 24/7 or a nanny. You just don't have that. What are your responsibilities? Do you feel responsible to be able to help in some way? Maybe you can provide some financial reimbursement for what they need to get for themselves. Maybe that would help. All of this takes decisions, managing your time, managing your priorities, your own capabilities, their capabilities. You might need to ask for advice from someone who's been through it before, someone who you trust, whether that be your doctor, their doctor, a social worker, a therapist. But everyone needs support. And it's hard to make these decisions alone. And it's hard to manage this maze of all these things that need to be done. So please seek support and advice. I've given you a list of some senior resources that the therapists here have come up with. Senior Linkage Line is a wonderful one. Seniors Blue Book is a good one, as well as Volunteers in America. Well, I hope these have been helpful for you. They've been helpful for many other people. And I'm hoping that these little tidbits of advice can be helpful for you as you're finding your way through caring for children, as well as caring for parents. And I just welcome you back to any of our webinars, any of the ones that I've shared at the beginning here, or any of the ones in our website. Thank you so much for joining us today, and please take care of yourself and each other.